Hey y'all, sorry I didn't get around to making this one earlier. I totally forgot about it, which is so weird because this is one of my favorite things. I think I just had a spit bubble. Anyway, we'll see. I'll check it in post. This is one of my favorite things to do in Unreal Engine, and something that's really opened up Unreal Engine as more of a live performance tool for myself. And that's using OSC to control things in real time. So, what is OSC? OSC is not a software. It's not a language. It's a data protocol. And basically what it lets you do is it lets you send information between computers and between softwares and between languages, which sounds a lot like the internet, maybe? I don't know. I never do web stuff. But what's really powerful about it, it actually stands for Open Sound Communication. Or Open Sound Control. Sorry about that. And it was originally designed as a way to network communication between lots of instruments in like a studio, so things could be wireless. And it kind of gained popularity just for sending data packets between anything. It's not really sound specific anymore. And it's used a lot in the new media kind of installation world. It's generally you would never use it for like something over the internet. It kind of replaces it's like if you wanted to send things in a local network. I'm making this really long, but let's say I had a situation where I had a Max MSP patch and I had some data coming in, like I was analyzing a song and I was getting the frequency of how like, or I guess I should say the volume, how loud that song was in a given moment, and I wanted my Unreal Engine level to like have an orb that like throbs based on like what the volume of that song is. OSC is a great way to take information like strings, floats, integers, and send it to another place, like from one software to another one language to another. So you could use it in P5, you could use it in Unity, you can use it. Basically, you just have to find a plugin for whatever you're using it with. Also, you can do it over a network. So if I had a OSC app on my phone, I could use the gyroscope and the accelerometer of my phone to control something, as long as it's on the same internet connection. We just have to specify what the IP address is. All right, that's enough of that. That was pretty just me blabbing for what felt like 5 whole minutes before we got started. But what we're going to look at today is how to use OSC in Unreal Engine. And I'll be using Max to kind of demonstrate its potential because it's a language I love, but also it's a really great fast prototyping and interfacing tool. And you'll see what I mean in just a bit. So even if you don't understand the Max part of things, know that it translates to any language of your choosing. And what I'm going to be working off of is the OSC plugin overview, that if you just look up Unreal Engine OSC, you should see this. And I can give a more slightly in-depth kind of example of how all this works and how you would use it. Over on this side, I just have that week 2 Unreal Engine thing I had going on. I'm not going to be doing too much with this. Frankly, you could just open up a new third-person patch and you'd just be fine, or I guess level. And I have a little Max window over here. So the very first thing I need to do is I need to go over to Edit, Plugins, and I'm going to go down to Input. And I believe this only works with maybe 425 and 424. Go to Input Devices, Open Sound Control. And I already had it on, but it's probably off for you. You'll need to toggle it on, and when you do, it'll say Restart Now. So I'm not going to do that because I already did, but you'll just need to restart when you do that. And now if I go to the Open Level Blueprint, this is a bit of a giveaway. I just had it here for notes. Actually, we don't even need this. I'll show you why in a second. If I start to make something like something in my level blueprint, if I type OSC, you can see I'm getting all sorts of OSC message kind of autocomplete. So we know that it's working. It's all set up. So let's take a step back. Cool, OSC's there, that's all great. I need it to do something first. I'm gonna go back to my level here, and I have my camera right here. If you remember in the place actors, I can just type in camera. And maybe you played with the camera a little already. You know, the camera here on the third person player. I can bring one into the world. I can move it. I can rotate it. You know, just aim it at the character a little like that. And if I click on something else, you don't see what it looks like anymore. But you could always pin it. So that way you could go over to something else if you were trying to set up a shot or something. And you can just unpin it. So yeah, that's all that is. What if I want to hit play and I want it to be that camera, which is not visible because I'm in the game, rather than this camera? One way to do that, and it's the way I usually do it, is if I select the camera and go into the level blueprint, create a reference, and drag off. This is a little weird. I'm going to take off the context sensitive. And I'm going to say set view target with blend. It won't pop up once you drag off the camera actor unless you disable that. I think it's because you're actually supposed to use this with something else. But this is just a hack the new media community is kind of like latched onto. And you can see that right there. And what this is basically going to do is it's going to say, make this the main camera. And anytime you send a bang or you send an execute to this, it'll make that the main camera. So I'm going to get an event begin play here. And then the last thing I'm going to do is say get player controller, which I think is just like this weird little thing you have to do for the target so it knows you're talking about this controller or this game. I actually don't know why, but I'm just following along with what I usually do. And then I go back here, I hit play, and now our camera, we can turn that pin off, but rather than our camera being this, it's this one. I can't move it. I can move my character, but the camera itself is just a fixed camera. So if you ever wanted to set up, like, this is different than sequencer. This is actually how I would be setting up cameras if I wanted fixed cameras or viewpoints while I'm playing the game. So this is not rendering things out, but if you actually, and this is great for installations and stuff, is you're less focused on making the greatest third-person roguelite action RPG of all time. You want to make something weird, like ITP kind of style. You could set up all these different shots with stuff that you have live manipulated through controllers or whatnot. So that's great. Let's get another camera in there. Copy, paste. Looks good to me. So I have camera actor. I'll just name this camera actor 1. Make things a little easier on myself later on. You know how it is. I'm not going to go back here. Oh, I gotta toggle that. And let's just copy paste that. And let's say, I mean, this is what we're going to get into, is I want to be able to switch between stuff. I could make like a trigger of a hotkey on my keyboard, but that's not that great. I mean, eventually you run out of keys. What if I am like doing like a giant show? What if I'm doing like a Childish Gambino in New Zealand with a giant dome with live visuals and there's 300 cues and cameras to cut to? This isn't, a keyboard's not going to cut it. So we need to think of a new way to control this. There is a way to do it in Unreal with like widgets and kind of overlays. You can make your own control panels. I'm going to be frank, it's a pain in the ass to set up. It's a lot of work. It's meant to be used for making menus in-game and stuff. And it looks terrible. So we also don't want to be manipulated. We kind of want to be hands-off with Unreal in this example. We want like the window that we get from Unreal to be somewhere else, and we want our control panel on another window. So what my goal is I want to make a little max patch that will control me toggling which camera we can go to. So I can make like more of a control interface. And that's where OSC comes into play. So, going back over to here, which is the Unreal Engine documentation for the OSC plugin, a cool thing you can do is you can copy a node graph, Control C, and voila. Beautiful. So we'll build a version of this from scratch, but let's just talk through a little what's happening on here. OSC has a server and a client. And the server, I mean, if you're familiar with any web stuff, the OSC server, I believe, is, I think this is backwards, actually. I think the server usually serves stuff, it sends stuff, and the client is what's listening. Anyway, in this case, this create OSC server is what's going to be listening. So we need to give it an IP address on which it's receiving information, and we need a port that it's listening for that information on. And we say start listening. Once we do that, we hook this up to a bind event on OSC message received. And that's something we get from the plugin itself as something that will pop up. And what that's saying is once that server is created, we're going to create an event that not only updates every time it receives information at that IP address and at that port, but it's also going to give us the information that's being received in the form of this OSC message structure. From there, we're going to get the address, and we'll talk about addresses in just a little bit. Basically, it's the first part of our message, which determines where we're trying to go with this message. We're going to convert it to a string, and you can see it pulls down here. It says to append and everything. This is basically just a string manipulation to say address, and then it'll print the address, and then value, and then it'll print the value. We get this print string. I'm jumping ahead. But then get OSC message integer at index. What it's saying is, maybe I can write a comment for this. Do I have a comment? So our OSC message is usually structured something like this. Camera 1. So we have our address, and then we have our value. And this integer right here is at index 0. It's the first part of our message after the address. And the address is right here. And that's what we're doing here with the gets OSC message address. So let's try that out. Then we all get print string and everything. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to grab my event begin play. So I want to start this server. So I need to say what the IP address is. The IP address on this is pretty simple. We want it to be the IP address of whatever this computer is. So I could go and look that up. I could do like a network tool on a command prompt. But there's some easier ways to reference yourself with this. You might have seen this even if you didn't understand it before. 127.0.0.1. That's just a way of saying whatever the IP address of this computer I'm on, that's the IP address I'm referencing. You can also say localhost, all lowercase in one word. So 127.0.0.1. And in a port, usually people do in the 8000s. I think if there's a way you could get in trouble, not literal trouble, but like things that get a little messy depending on the port numbers you use, and they keep it in the 8000s. 7000's fine too. It doesn't matter too much. All you need to know is which one did you choose. Now I'm going to go over here to Max. I'm going to make an object. Max, like objects are just kind of code blocks. I'm going to make one called Udp Send. And Udp Send, UDP is related to OSC on how it communicates, but basically this is just Max's object for saying send OSC data. And it needs, when I send OSC data, I need to give it an IP address and a port. So we are listening over here on 127.0.0.1 and port 7000, so I'm going to do the same thing here. 127.0.0.1 7,000. And an important thing to note is I could also do this on a completely separate computer as long as we're on the same internet connection, the same network. I would just have to find out the 192.168.0.16 and put that as where I'm sending it to. You can't self-reference when you're not a part of the self-reference. Yes. So anyway, there are points where you might want to put in the actual, you will want to discover what the actual IP address of that computer. So if I had a laptop and wanted to control it from there, I could do it that way. But we're just doing it from the same computer for now. I'm going to write a message, which is just data in max, and I'll say \camera1. Lock the patch so I can interact with it and send data. Compile, hit play, and I'm going to send my message. And you see there, address, \camera, and value, 1. I keep clicking it. And what we're getting is we're sending this data from Max to Unreal Engine with this OSC server. And like I said before, it gets the message. It parses the address down to a string so it can print that. And it grabs the first integer at index 0, which is that 1. I mean, for an example, I could also say get message integer at index 3 and give this 3 more values. And now it will print the 45 because this is the index 3 with an index 0, if that makes sense. Cool. So, how do we take this to the next step? How do we go from just sending data to actually controlling things? That's a great question. What we will want to do next is, I'm going to actually get rid of this part. Actually, I can keep that. And get my cameras back here. And I don't know, some people don't do this. I like doing it. I like to kind of like put things on top and below like that when they're attached to something. So let's say I wanted to do, I have 2 cameras. So I'll do cam 1, or all one word because that's an address, and cam 2. Then over here, we know we're converting the cam1 and cam2 message into a string. I'm going to drag off here and say switch on string. This is an amazing Unreal data flow tool, which means it's going to parse, or it's going to analyze the string, and I'm adding these pins, and I can give it a string. I'll say cam1, cam2. And when I send a string that matches anything in the switch on string, it'll execute just that node. And that should be right. So now, when I hit cam1, it switches to cam1, cam2, cam1, cam2, cam1, cam2, cam1, cam2. I lost track there. But you see what I mean? We're like, now we can actually use some of this data parsing here to send messages to actually trigger different results while we're live in the game. And it's fine. I'm doing this only with an address. I guess I could put like a bool on it, but I don't really need to because Unreal just works with these executes. So if it's just basically triggering something to happen once, not even examining whether it's true or false or whatever, like you could just go like this. Let's make it even Let's say I also want to set the rotation of every camera in real time. That's where it gets a little trickier. Disconnect these and back things up. And I'm going to go back to my camera actor here. I'm going to drag off and I'm going to say set rotation. I'll say relative, because then it will move it from where its current position was. And it expects 3 values here, the x, y, and z. Anytime you have anything, it's a vector 2 or vector 3 or anything that requires multiple values in something that's packed together, you can right click and say split struct pin. And now it exposes any of those values that can be changed as an individual float that you can adjust. Going back here, now I need to think about how to break down. Let's actually write out our message first here. We have 3 values here, and I need to make sure I can't use this anymore because I don't want to always have to I don't always want to switch to the camera when I'm setting the rotation. I guess you could, but let's say for this sake that we're not going to have that. I guess I could have like cam 1 rotate $1, $2, $3. Don't worry about this if you're not a part of Max. It's just a way to dynamically change values. Pack it together. I'll explain it in a second. Alright, now I can visualize this. So as I was saying, come on. We have our address. We have a new string. We want to clarify that we only want this to parse to the rotate part of our message. And we have 3 values, the x, y, and z. This is why I love Max. I just have these number boxes here now that I can just grab and click in real time. I could even turn them into sliders or something if I wanted. And I have another message I need to make. Sometimes I just want to switch to that camera. Yeah, I don't need a value. And we'll do cam 2 in a little bit. Let's work with this right now. Going back here, I am going to actually turn this message into a variable. Because I'm about to do something. I'll take a step back. I want to make another switch. I want to say get OSC message string at index 0. That might look really confusing. It probably is, but rest assured, all I'm saying is our address is \cam1, and the first index 0 of our message is a string. And I'm saying get the OSC message string at index 0, and it'll spit it out at this value. So I'll get either rotate or switch. In order to do that, I need to send the message here, all the way from back here. So this is why I want to make this a rather, this gets so messy dragging all the way over here. I'm just going to say promote to variable OSC message we'll set that variable every time we receive something. And I could just drag off like that. It's just saying, you know, usually that's pretty common. You need to grab something like that. And, oops, It looks like I made that twice. I'll delete one of them. Cool. And if I hold a control and click, actually, just to make that simple, if you drag off of here, say get OSC message, hook it up here, brilliant. Now it's a lot cleaner. I could put this anywhere else in the patch I need to, or in the blueprint. I'm like mixing up my language between Max and Unreal. For those of you that do Max, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But so I'm going to do this again. Now I want it to switch on string again. Now that we parsed out that we're talking about camera 1, I need to know, are we talking about switching or are we talking about rotating? Lovely. And then put that selection right in there. If it's switch, we go straight to set view target. And if it's rotate, we got a little bit of more work to do because we got 3 more values to parse out. I'm going to say get OSC message float at index. Copy paste it. And we have we want that to be index 1, 2, and 3. Because if we go back here, remember this is the address, this is index 0, it's a string, this is index 1, which is a float, index 2, which is a float, and index 3, which is a float. So we're just breaking it all out, and each one of these is going to go to X, Y, Z. And if any of them update, we'll update the relative rotation. There's one last great tool I want to show you, and that's called sequence. This is basically a way to have multiple things happen in a set order from one execution. So first we'll do Y, then we'll do X, then we'll do Y, then we'll do Z. Just like that. So you see how I've constructed all this? Parse out the address, cool, we're in the right place. Use the string of the first index of the message to determine which camera we're talking to. Then, am I saying I want to switch to that camera or do I want to rotate? And then if I want to rotate, then grab the last 3 values and use it to set the rotation of this camera. Oh, and there's that thing. I need that OSC message going into them. Now switch to the camera and start rotating. And just to, I don't know, just to like really start having some fun. Let's see if this works. Like, this is where the new media stuff comes into play. Let's say with Max, I want to get my microphone. Easy DAC. And I want ADC. I'll say meter. Check, check, check. Oh. Get my audio status. I swear if this causes everything to crash, I'm going to be so upset. Check, check, check. There we go. Check, 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 check. Looks like it's like up to 0.0 to 0.3. So I'll say scale. Ooh. 0.0 to 0.3 to 0 to 90 degrees. Check. Oh, wait. Check, check, check. Check, check. Hey, my voice is controlling the camera's rotation on the x-axis. Yeah. Cool. So, you get the idea. We could build the exact same setup. Actually, I guess I'll just do it because it's so easy. For Cam 2. Boom. Ba-boom. Ba-la-ba-ba-boom. Boom. Boom. Just filling the empty void of sound. And then copy that. Cam 2. Cam 2. Voila. So, the last thing I'll point out is if you go back to this, it can go the other way too. I don't think I very rarely ever use this, but you could also send data from Unreal to another software or language. And this is how it would look. Create the client. Use a string to type the address you want. Convert it to a message. Add integers, strings, floats, bools. And then send it out as an OSC message. And if something was listening at this IP address in this port, it would receive it. So you could send the velocity of your third-person character to your oscillator in Max MSP. Something like that. Anyway, hit me up on Discord if you have any questions. I hope this is really fun. This is honestly like one of the main things I've been doing in Unreal Engine, making kind of like live interactive performance stuff. And these are the tools I start with to try and make kind of a control panel for all of that. So enjoy.